Thank you. I'm Con, I'm an addict. Thank you for inviting me up, Rav. Thanks for the committee who do service and put the meeting on, and for everybody else making the meeting possible. Welcome to newcomers, returnees, and lots of you with experience. I know a few faces from my first meeting, and kind of hold me to account, you know. I was completely bonkers in my early days. My first meetings were in 2014. I don't really know what to talk about. I'm just going to try and ad-lib it. Whatever comes up, comes up. I was a middle child, angry dad, and a yes mum, and two older brothers who were good at everything they did. I was the problem child. I got diagnosed with several learning disabilities, and it took me time to kind of level out a bit. And from what I've learnt in my recovery and all the therapy work I've done, the undoing of me, or whoever I was supposed to become, started in that childhood. And I was a child striving for the love of parents that they couldn't really give me. It was angry dad, and trying to become someone else to please him, to make him proud of me, but the harder I tried, the worse it kind of turned out, and there were beatings, and I was never good enough, and he'd tell me so, beatings, getting locked up, deprived of stuff, and when you're at a disadvantage like that as a kid, it's so always playing catch up, and as a kid trying to be someone else in an unnatural way, trying to force it, kind of became part of my baseline. To be someone else, and at school I wanted to be like the trendy kids, the popular crowd, and I would kind of just look at these older kids and think, I want to be like you. You look trendy and popular, and you're happy, and I would just copy everything they did, just trying to fit in, playing catch up. No matter how much work I've done on myself, there's so much elements of trying to be another person, a superficial fake that looked the business, and from the first days of taking a substance, I started to feel like that person, I didn't know that the wool was being pulled over my eyes, Drugs were fun for a long time, until they weren't. And by that stage, the damage was already done. I'd become so disassociated that I couldn't see how much I relied on them, how much they'd become part of my life. Step one is, in order to do step one, we need to be sober, and for me, sobriety is surrender, and it's not a passive state of submission. For me, it was a kicking and screaming surrender, white knuckling it, hanging on to those reservations and those old ways that I'd been used to. those old ways were my coping mechanism. You know, there are 69 questions in step 1 in the green and gold. You know, and sharing it with my sponsor. You know, in the early days, it was a meal for 2 with a terrible view. But, you know, looking back on my recovery, you know, coming into my early meetings in early recovery and saying, my name's Con and I'm an addict. You know, we admitted we were powerless. It started for me to admit that I was an addict and to get used to saying that. You know, and then I still had cloth ears, or what do they call it, cotton wool ears, in my early recovery. I was still having behaviours, you know, coming out of my addiction to be that fake perfect person that everyone liked, and you know, that I could like myself. You know, I'd never learned how to be real. And I think the simplicity is, step 1 is that stepping stone to get out of fakery and into reality. You know, I had to reopen the dictionary in my early recovery and look at a lot of these words like honesty, open-mindedness and willingness. With these we are well on our way. But for me, I was still in the grip of a debilitating disease. Even in my early days, attending meetings and picking up key rings for attendance rather than clean time. You know, I was going to meetings regularly, having a little toot before, during and after, you know, listening through those readings in the meeting when they say, you know, if you're carrying it, go out and stash it. I don't fucking stash it. I don't get my gear, you know. But you lot kept telling me to keep coming back. You saw right through me, but I was still cutting. I still had a job. I still had a roof over my head when I came to recovery, you know. But coming into recovery, I had a routine, a habit, and that was unhealthy, and that had consequences that I was trying to run away from. And a lot of it was about what you got, how much, you know, can I borrow, whether, and go and get the drugs and go and use them. And then there was consequences, you know, ending up in crack houses, courthouses, jail houses, you know, and then, you know, the physical health, the mental health that comes with that. You know, early recovery was tough, you know. I had to lose the home, lose the job, really melt down, get physically unwell, become homeless, live on the streets, you know, feral existence. It still wasn't enough, you know. Sobriety comes when it comes. You know, you can't force this stuff. It has to be a natural balance of actions that I had to put in, keep coming to meetings, following suggestions, getting a sponsor, getting phone numbers, connecting with people, and having a newer routine away from the using routine, finding ways and means to get more, the excitement to use. And then when you're using, they don't work anymore. The come downs that come after it, then all the problems and consequences, and that circle is running away. And, you know, I'd run out of money, I'd run out of people to bail me out of each and every problem. And, you know, therein is the insanity that comes in step 2, the unmanageability of my life, you know, acknowledge. But I got through it, you know. I made a few mistakes in the early days, you know, still trying to copy people, trying to be someone else, getting involved in other people's stuff to avoid looking at myself. You know, they were talking about step 13 and, you know, don't get into relationships. And I fell in love with a tea lady in a meeting, and we met under some pretext, and then we had sex, and then we used together and relapsed. You know, this is unhealthy behaviour. You know, there's a fellow member, she's 3 days clean and putting herself sexy on social media, and there's some fellows encouraging her, and I said to her, "You're making yourself in danger, girl. You know, somebody could exploit you." And, you know, she expressed some love towards me, you know, she's attention, and I relate to it because I go through phases too. And I said, "Look, sweetheart, concentrate on your recovery. When you get a year clean or 2, or we can go on a date or something. It's important she gets that stability too. You know, because if you mess up with newcomers, you're taking everyone away from that chance that we get in here. You know, like you said in that reading right at the beginning, you know, that, you know, don't get involved in relationships, and that behaviour, disruptive behaviour, that sexual behaviour is unhelpful, isn't it? To get current, you know, I've been in the grip of my depression and anxiety. I was self-isolating. I was binge eating crap food. I was looking at videos online of death, suicide. I was looking online at buying equipment to help me suicide. You know, I've been around this stuff 12 years and I still get suicidal ideation. And I've been in the grip of this. And we've lost a few friends recently, you know. There was a funeral of 2 of them today. There's a wake tomorrow. I might go to the wake. But I had to dig back in. You know, I put a message in my sponsorship family. I put a message in a couple of other groups. I've messaged a few of you. Because you know, isolating myself, you know, and eating all that food, and then I purged for the first time in years. My bulimia came back, you know, and then another friend said to me, "Your ADHD's exacerbating this. I take this medication for my ADHD," and she was offering to give me a tablet. God, was I tempted? But I put a note on my sponsorship group. I said, "What do you think about this?" And there's the word amphetamine in the core of this ADHD medication, you know. But when I'm in the grips of this illness, I could miss that sign, you know, because I was feeling excitement from this thing that could take away what I'm feeling or something, you know. It's better to face life unmedicated and work a program, you know. And I kind of want to dedicate this share to one of our friends that we've lost, because we've been in contact and then he's taken his life. And I can't save people. I realise that now. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And I admired him for there were some elements of his life in perfection. He built a chiselled body, you know, worked hard in the gym, his diet, perfect. But he neglected his recovery. And he weren't happy. It kind of shows me there's the balance here, the humility of being a little bit overweight, but being a bit happier, You know, misery is optional. I want to be happy, joyous and free. And if I've got a muffin top or a beer, well, food belly, you know, that's my choice, you know, and I have to continue working these steps. So I'm digging myself out of this isolation. I've turned up at this meeting. I've been working at work the last 2 days, feeling like on a come down from 3 days of binging and looking at dark material online. But, you know, I've broken that cycle because we know where it leads. I'm not happy at the moment. I'm broken and I'm coming back. So I hope this helps. You know, this is a great opportunity to do this sharing. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to hearing you guys back.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom.